Hello guys and welcome to our last lesson dealing with the historical background of the Romantic Age. This is our third lesson. Two of them one of them was online, the other was a video like this one. And what I expect from you is to try to sum everything up, answering the questions that I sent you and the questions that you can find in the checkpoints that I have already listed. Okay, now as I usually do, I will share my desktop with you. Okay, all of my desktop, and I hope you can see it. Yes, you can. And I will show you my slides, my presentation. Don't forget that this presentation is the same that you already have in your folder, The Romantic Age in Didattica. Okay, so visualizza. Okay, if you remember, okay, on Monday or on Tuesday, on Monday, when we did our lesson, our second lesson about the historical background of the Romantic Age, we focused on two revolutions. Okay, that's to say, a political revolution, which was or which were the Napoleonic Wars, so the time of Napoleon and the reactions to the empire of Napoleon in Britain, and then we focused on a social, economical revolution which affected a lot Britain, which made Britain the most industrialized country in the whole world. That was the Industrial Revolution. We said about the Industrial Revolution that it was characterized by a lot of new inventions and new technologies, by the shift of the population from the countryside to the new industrialized towns. It was characterized by the beginning or the creation of a new system of production, by the use of new forms of energy, by the birth of new social classes, of new jobs. And now, today, in order to state something more about the Industrial Revolution, we are focusing on which were, the pros and the contraries of the revolution, the Industrial Revolution itself. But I don't like to share only my desktop with you. I would like to share also my face, because I would like you to see me too. Okay, not only the desktop. I hope that you can. Okay, let's start. So, as I said, from the beginning. Okay, so let's focus firstly on the pros. Pros means the positive aspects of the Industrial Revolution, and then we will say also something about the cons, or that's to say the contraries, so the negative sides, the negative aspects of the revolution itself. Okay, the most important thing to say is that, as we have already stated, this Industrial Revolution was mainly an economic transformation. In fact, we said that it was a change in the economy, a transformation of the economy, but it was also a social revolution, because the new economy, okay, this economic transformation changed not only how the goods were produced, but also how people, how citizens approached or were related to the goods themselves and to one another, and also to the planet at large. So, which were the pros? Which were the positive sides of this industrial revolution? The first that you can see listed here, the goods, so i beni, i prodotti, became more and more affordable and more accessible. Affordable means che molte più persone potevano permetterseli. Why? Because they were cheaper than before. So the price, the cost of the goods became, okay, more affordable. More people could afford buying more goods. Why? Because with the new system of transformation, of the new system of production, the introduction of new forms of energy, okay, of new machinery, as we said, the factories could produce items, goods faster and cheaper, okay? And so they did, because they used all these machineries, okay? So they could produce more products, more goods in a shorter time. And these products were obviously cheaper than before when they were totally handmade. So during the Romantic Age, so thanks to the Industrial Revolution, for example, goods, tools, shoes, clothing, household, potteries. Household means oggetti che si usavano in ambito domestico, casalinghi, ok? Became more common and less expensive. And for this reason, the life of people was enhanced, improved, okay, became better, became easier. This was the first pro of the Industrial Revolution. Then another positive side of the Industrial Revolution in Britain was what you can see here listed with the number 2. There was a quick evolution, okay, of inventions that saved labor, okay? What do I mean when I say that there was a quick evolution in the inventions that were used to save labor? For example, there was the production, the evolution of new type of tools, new type of vehicles, new type of machineries, mostly new type of vehicles which were used to carry goods and people from one place to another. So this was really a positive side of the revolution. The first, as we said, and I would like you to understand it well, the first positive side was that there were more products. These products, these goods were cheaper, as we said here in the first point, and more people could afford them. So more and more people could buy shoes, clothing, household, tools, okay, because they were cheap. Then there were new tools, okay, new vehicles that people used to have a better life. Then the third, there was in this period, thanks to the Industrial Revolution, thanks to the new technologies, there was also the rapid, the quick evolution of medicine. Okay, in fact, during this period, thanks to the Industrial Revolution, thanks to the new machinery, thanks to the new inventions, there were a lot of new tools and medical instruments which were produced more quickly. For example, medical instruments, okay, microscope lenses, tubes for tests, they were mass produced, quindi c'era una produzione massiccia, di massa, ok, of these medical instruments. And the availability of so many medical instruments contributed in the evolution, in the quick evolution of medicine, okay? And this rapid evolution of medicine was not only due to the availability of a lot of new medical instruments, okay, but it was also due to the fact that communication between doctors, physicians in different areas improved. It was possible and it was uh, easier and faster to communicate. So the new discoveries, okay, the new cures, the details dealing with the new cures, new treatments for disease could be spread easily, and this resulted in better health care. So for example, now in this period of the virus, okay, where we know something more about the virus because we know what has already happened in China, for example, what is happening now in the United States. The communication between different physicians is important because it helps, okay, to spread quickly new cures, new info, new treatments. That was what happened in thanks to the Industrial Revolution. More communication, easier communication, and so also quick evolution of medicine. Then another important positive side of the Industrial Revolution was that the average person had a better quality of life and had a better wealth. Ok, so generally speaking, average person significa il cittadino medio, la persona media, ok, generally speaking, had more money and had a better quality of life. Okay, these were some of the most important pros. Okay, some of them. Now let's focus on which were on the other side the contraries, so the negative sides of the Industrial Revolution. Let's put them on the scale, sulla bilancia. So on one side all these pros, all these positive sides, okay, on the other side there were some negative effects of the revolution itself. For example, the very first was that the new industrialized towns and cities in less than 30-40 years became very overcrowded. Overcrowded. Crowded significa affollati, overcrowded, sovraffollate. Okay, so in less than 40 years, new towns were born around the factories, the so-called mushroom towns, città a fungo, okay? They were born usually near the fields, ok? Quindi near the mines, le miniere, and near the newborn factories. And in less than 40 years, these newborn cities, towns became really overcrowded. Okay, full of people. Why? Because a lot of people who used to live in the countryside, who used to live on agriculture, okay, moved looking for a better life to the towns, to the industrial towns. And these towns, they were not rich. These people were not rich. They worked in the factories, they worked in the mines, so they worked in the field that was connected with the industrialization, the industrial revolution. And they were not rich, so they lived in shanty towns, cramped, ugly shanty towns. Shanty towns sono tipo le baraccopoli, ok? Erano davvero fatte di baracche le città. I posti dove vivevano i lavoratori erano un insieme di baracche, sporche, dirty, ok? They were shacks. Shacks are baracche, okay, and other forms of poor quality housing. The houses, the shacks, which were born, which were built around the factories and around the mines of the industrial towns, were really poor quality. Okay, then in these places, so in the new industrial towns which were overcrowded, there were a lot of problems. For example, the sanitation systems were overwhelmed, okay, were full. I sistemi sanitari non erano adatti. And the sewerage, this word that you can see here, I hope you can see, sewerage, significa il sistema di fognatura. Le fogne, ok, were overwhelmed, were in very poor conditions. Okay, a lot of people saw the sewerage was overwhelmed. Also, the water, the drinking water, was often contaminated, so it was not good for health. Okay, all this situation, so this overcrowding of the cities, of the industrial towns, okay, the living condition of the workers, the fact that the sewerage and the sanitation systems were overwhelmed, the fact that the drinking water was contaminated, all of these, okay, were conditions, okay, ideal conditions for the outbreak of a lot of diseases. Okay, so a lot of diseases killed people living in overcrowded, cramped shanty towns, industrial towns, which were the most important diseases that killed the people during this period in the industrial towns. The typhus, the cholera, the smallpox, the tuberculosis, all of them were diseases which killed a lot, thousands and thousands of people. Okay. Then another problem, another contrary, okay, so another negative side of the Industrial Revolution, in opposition to the positive ones that we have just listed, was, for example, the pollution, the very beginning of pollution. What is pollution? Pollution stands for the Italian word inquinamento. For the very first time in the history of an European country, we speak about pollution. Why? Because the factories, in order to produce, needed fuel, carburante, and this fuel was mostly coal. You know what is coal? Carbone, okay? So let's try to think, okay, how much coal was needed for this machinery, okay, how much coal the factories needed in order to make their machinery work, okay, in order to make their steam engines, ne abbiamo parlato la scorsa volta, work, a lot of coal, okay, and this coal, for example, started to pollute water, okay, also, for example, extracting rocks for minerals transformed the environment. So the environment, l'ambiente naturale, was changed, transformed by, for example, the use of trees, of the soil, of water, of minerals, and by the emission of carbon, of coal. Okay, don't forget that in this period, for example, the color grey smoke of London was born. Don't forget that London, which used to be one of the most industrialized towns, okay, in that period, had the sky which was always gray. Why was the sky always gray? Because it was polluted by the continuous, the never-ending burning of coal in the factories. So the ashes, le ceneri, the smoke and the ashes coming out of the chimneys, the tall chimneys of the factories, quindi the smoke and the ashes, il fumo e le ceneri coming out of the chimneys of the factories, che venivano fuori dalle alte ciminiere, chimneys of the factories, polluted the sky, also the water, okay, but the sky was always gray because of the ashes and of smoke which came out of the tall chimneys of the factories. Then, so we said, the cities were overcrowded, a lot of diseases, okay, and the pollution of the water, of the soil, okay. And then another condition, another side which was not positive at all was the poor conditions, the poor living conditions of the workers. All the people which had moved from the countryside to the industrialized cities, towns, lived in cramped shanty towns made up of shacks, okay, we said, and they were spoiled, okay, they worked for long hours. Why? Because the owners of the factories wanted to have a lot of money. They wanted to have profit over else. And so they didn't care about the safety of the workers. Okay, they only wanted to produce a lot and to get a lot of profit. So the people who worked in the factories, and they were not only men and adults, but they were also children, very young children and women. So the workers in the factories earned greater wages if they were compared to the people who worked in the factory, for example, in the fields, okay, the agricultural workers. But they worked really hard and in really poor conditions. What do I mean when I say that their working conditions were really poor? Firstly, the working day, the working hours per day went from 14 to 16. So a worker, a man, a child, a woman could work or had to work between 14 and 16 hours a day. Okay? And they had to work for 6 days per week. Okay, so it was a lot. It was incredibly hard. And the wages of the children and the wages of the women were less than half for the of the ones of the men. So men earned earned, guadagnavano, more than twice, okay, than women. So you can understand how low were the wages, wage significa paghe, gli stipendi, were the wages of children and women. And you can understand why, as you can see in this photo, a lot of children worked in the factories because the owners of the factories could pay them only very, very low wages. Okay, it is useless to say that the working conditions were not safe, were unsafe, because the factories were dirty, okay, the machinery were unsafe, a lot of accidents happened, and they resulted in injuries of the workers and in the death of many of them. Okay, so you can see that these were the conditions. This was the situation. So we said, okay, beautiful, there was an industrial revolution, there were a lot of positive signs, but don't forget how hard the living conditions of the working class were. Okay, in fact, these new working classes, the workers in the factories, were not happy at all, were not pleased at all with their living and working conditions. And during the Romantic Age, during this age, we have a period of strong social unrest. Do you remember what we stated when we said what romantic was? We said that romantic means also rebellion. Okay, romantic is a period of revolts, a period of revolution, of unrest. Okay, because people were not happy, were not pleased with what they had, most of all the working classes. Okay, and why was there this social unrest? Why in Britain were people not pleased with the situation? Because in Britain, after the Congress of Vienna, okay, here there is a mistake obviously, as you know, the first part of the Congress of Vienna was in 1815, okay, in England, okay, in England, in Britain, there was not a big request of items. Do you know that during the wars, the factories are asked to produce more? During the wars, okay, to face the problems, the difficulties, and the needs of a country which is at war, the factories need to produce more and more. But at the end of the Napoleonic Wars, and so with the Congress of Vienna in 1815, there was no longer a big request of items. So what did it bring? It bring to unemployment. It brought, sorry, to unemployment. Unemployment. Employment, unemployment, un privativa, la disoccupazione. So you can see all the people, or a lot of people, who had left the countryside, who had shifted, who had moved from the countryside to the new industrialized towns in Britain, looking for a better life, better living and working condition, after some years lost their job. The unemployment, the rate of unemployment increased. And since there was less need of workers, also the wages l'abbiamo detto poc'anzi, gli stipendi, le paghe, also the wages of the workers became very very low. Ok, c'era tanta manodopera e poco lavoro, quindi che cosa potevano permettersi di fare i datori di lavoro? Abbassare i prezzi. Se vuoi lavorare ti do di meno. Ok, that is una cruda e crudele legge di mercato. Okay, so higher rates of unemployment, okay, because of the end of the war, of the Napoleonic Wars, very low wages, and so this great distress. People were not happy. And then there was another important event, okay, which led to this feeling, to this incredible social unrest. There was the there was a law that was called Corn Law o legge sul grano, ok? Detto anche Importation Act. What did it say? Cosa fece quest'atto promulgato dal Parlamento? What did it state? It prohibited the importation of, corn from abroad. So in England, in Britain, people could only use corn which was produced in Britain. No corn from other countries, from the colonies, for example, or from other countries, could be easily imported in Britain. It was a kind of protectionist, of protective law for the production of Britain. But when the corn is not enough, when the people need more corn, ok, quando la richiesta, la domanda supera l'offerta di un prodotto, altra spietata legge del mercato, che cosa succede? Che i prezzi si alzano. So, a lot of corn was needed and the corn could not be imported easily, okay, or there was a heavy tax, a heavy duty to be paid on the corn imported. This made the price of bread, that is maybe the best, okay, product of corn, rise. So the price of bread rose because of the corn load and the prohibition of the importation of corn from abroad, or the heavy taxes, the heavy duties imposed by the British Parliament on the importation of corn from abroad. So people didn't have a job. There was unemployment. Their wages were very low, okay? Then the price of the bread increased, rose, and so that's why there was a great distress. That was why people were not happy. They wanted to change situation. And there was, for example, another act which contributed in making this social unrest bigger and bigger. In 1800, the parliament, okay, made this Combination Act. What was it? The parliament prohibited the trade unions. So the people, the workers, could not combine, could not stay together. Union of workers could not meet. Okay, so the workers who wanted to discuss, who wanted to change things, okay, couldn't do it. Why? Because the parliament knew that there was this social unrest. The parliament were afraid of the social unrest and they wanted to prevent the social disorders. But actually, there were social disorders. And among these social disorders, when we think of industrialization, of the Industrial Revolution, of this period in Britain, we usually think of the Luddites. Luddites, yes, Luddites, no, Luddites, okay, the Luddites. What were these Luddites? The Luddites, okay, were forms of protest that the textile workers did because they wanted to make a kind of protest against the new introduction of machines. Okay, so the Luddites were these workers, mainly weavers, erano dei lavoratori dell'ambiente tessile, ok, textile works, weavers, che lavoravano solitamente al telai, ok, who wanted to protest against the introduction of new machines in their job. They really believed that the introduction of new machinery could prevent them for having good wages. They were trained artisans and they believed that this machinery didn't help them because the machinery could substitute their work, what they were good at. Okay? And these Luddites started with a weaver whose name was Ned Ludd. Okay? And who was this Ned Ludd? From his name, where is it? Okay, here you can see it. From the name Ludd, his family name, the word Luddites comes. Okay, so this Ned Ludd was a young apprentice. Apprentice significa un apprendista who in form of protest, destroyed a lot of machinery in the factory where he worked in 1779. So, to protest against the use of the machinery in the textile industry, he destroyed the machinery in the factory where he worked. Okay? This was the beginning of these riots, of the Luddites, of these protests, of these strong, sometimes violent forms of protest. Because the Luddites wanted or thought that the massive mechanization of the textile production could threaten their life, their jobs, and also their skills. Okay, so from the first protest made by Ned Ludd, who I repeat, destroyed textile apparatus in the factory where he used to work in 1779, from this moment on, a group of British weavers and textile workers started to destroy machines and other tools as a form of protest. The Luddite rebellions, all these protests, the protests that started, okay, were called the Luddite rebellions, ok? Le ribellioni Luddite, ok? So dei seguaci di Ludd. And which were the most important Luddite rebellions? The first, and very well known that I want you to remember, happened on the 9th of October 1779. What happened? A group of textile workers in the city of Manchester, which is in the north of England, rebelled against the introduction of new machinery. Okay, they didn't want the machinery, and so they rebelled. How did they rebel? They destroyed the new machinery. Then we can say that this riot, this rebellion, was the very first of a long series of riots that took place during this period. These Luddites were groups and they were usually secret groups. They often meet at night in isolated places, ok? And they tried to organize themselves. Era una sorta di società segrete fatte di lavoratori che si incontravano all'oscuro di notte in posti isolati e che cercavano di organizzarsi, di organizzare le proprie forme di protesta. They wanted to organize themselves and their different forms of protests. Okay? So this is important because it makes us understand how difficult the social situation was. Yes, there was progress. Yes, there was medicine. Yes, there were new cities, new towns, new transports. England, Britain was becoming the most important, the richest country in the whole world. But okay, on the other side, there were problems. There were social problems, and the parliament in Britain had to face these problems and had to try to fix them. Let's see how this period of social reforms started and which were the most important social reforms in this period. Okay, so we said that the Romantic Age was a period of changes and also of social reforms. The social reforms are or were important changes. Who was the king during this period? You know, we have already stated it also during our last lesson. He was George III. Okay, he was known as the Mad King who lost America. Mad because he was insane. Okay, the scientists think that he had porphyria, that is a genetic blood disorder. And what are the symptoms of this porphyria? He had a manic face, okay, a kind of bipolar disorder. So he was insane. And then he also lost America because, as you know, the American War for Independence ended with George III, and it was George III who had to recognize the independence of the 13 American colonies with the Treaty of Versailles, as you said, after the American War for Independence, or as we said, the American Revolution. So he was insane, and because of his insanity, his son became regent, had the regency in 1811. And then, after 9 years, so in 1820, when his father died, when George III died, George, vi ho detto già la fantasia, ricordate, George, who had had the regency for 9 years, became king with the name George IV in, as I said, 1820. George the Fourth was not a beloved king. He also made a lot of mistakes, but he tried to do something good. The good things that he did were, firstly, he loved arts. He loved all the arts, and so he patronized, so he gave money to a very famous architect of the period whose name was John Nash, who, for example, built Regent Street in London. Okay, Regent Street now is one with, together with Oxford Street, is one of the two streets of shopping in London. Very central, very beautiful and luxury. And he was also the architect who developed Regent's Park in London. Then George IV also gave money to Sir Geoffrey Whitesville to restore Windsor Castle. Windsor Castle is the castle where Henry and Meghan got married some years ago. Okay, the castle. It is the favorite castle of Queen Elizabeth's favorite castle near London. It's not in London, but it is nearby. Okay. Then George IV, as I told you, he was a lover of the arts of architecture, also patronized the build of this famous, beautiful building that looks so much oriental, Chinese decorated, but it is not in China or in India. It is in Brighton, so in the south of England, and it is called the Royal Pavilion. Okay, this was made during the reign of George IV by the architect Nash, designed by Nash in Brighton. And this stays for the oriental, for the exotic, is clearly can be clearly seen in it, and we will see that this this taste, this need, this pleasure, okay, given by the oriental, the exotic, was one of the most important characteristics in the art of the Romantic Age. We will focus on it in I think a couple of days. Now, what you can see here are it is the last checkpoint. It is the checkpoint that you can find at page 293, and it asks you to match the beginning of the sentences, which are here with a number which goes from 1 to 9, with the ending of the endings of the sentences, which go from letter A to letter I. Putting them together, you will have a short, very short summary of the things that we have just said. Okay, that's all. So I close it, I go back to my face. Okay, here I am again, guys, and this is our last lesson dealing with the historical background of the Romantic Age. Our next lesson will be online, I think, and we will deal with, on Monday, we will deal with the literary background, so with the characteristics, the features of the literature during the Romantic Age, during this period. Now I want you to answer all the questions, the first part, the second part, the third part, to make all the exercises, if you haven't done them yet, that are in the checkpoints, and so to try to get ready to speak in details of the Romantic Age, of the revolutions which characterized the Romantic Age. Then I will give you something to read about it, some reading comprehensions to make your knowledge deeper. Okay, see you soon, and bye bye.